Hello, welcome to the Scrap Time CHA Wrap-Up. My name is Christine, and in this episode we're talking about scrapbooking, and I am joined by a few of my friends.
Tami Morrison.
Stephanie Hackney with Paper Crafters Corner.
And Nancy Nally.
So, our overall thoughts, we'll start with that, about scrapbooking at this show. Tammy?
Smaller than usual. There's a lot of crossover of mixed media and different types of crafts, and there's still scrapbooking booths, there's still scrapbooking papers and embellishments, but a lot of it is how can you use these for other things as well.
I was finding that a lot of the big scrapbooking companies have half their booth will be scrapbooking and half is like home party decor. And using their papers for that segment.
Like My Mind's Eye.
Yeah, we are memory keepers.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of the companies are diversifying their product line. There's very few companies where you can walk in the booth and it's purely paper and sticker scrapbooking anymore.
Which is smart if they want to stay in business, because crafters are branching out and scrapbookers are scrapbooking less, I think, and dabbling in other things more.
Yeah, and I would say probably the exception to that is Kaiser Craft, because they still, if you walk to their booth, I mean, all four sides of the booth are still 12 by 12 papers, but they're also, not from the U.S., and they also serve a much more international market, and we have a lot of international people coming to the site. And scrapbooking is still growing in other markets. So, although it's slowed way down here, I think that there's still opportunities in other places.
Yeah, in the
I
international
would say
market.
too that with Kaiser Craft, even though they're still strongly a scrapbooking company, about a quarter of their booth is coloring. They've got coloring books, they've got gel pens, they've got small coloring books that you can take along in your tote bag, and they've got the great big ones, and they've got a huge amount of different themes. There's probably 20 or 30 different ones.
They've also got their Beyond the Page line too that they've done for years.
A lot of home decor
with the 3D items.
And the book papers that they have are gorgeous. They look like book bindings.
So then what sort of trends, in the actual thing? I know diamonds and that whole
So many
dimensional
diamonds, faceted diamonds.
Yeah,
Not
that's
just
really
the shape
big.
of a kite diamonds, but faceted diamonds.
Yeah, those sort of dimensional shapes I saw a lot.
Yeah, apparently we're feeling we're feeling in the money again, I guess, after the economic collapse, and everybody wants their glitz and
I like it
glamour
because
again.
we're not talking about stamps here, but there's a lot of stamps that say "You're a gem." So with my daughter being Gemma, I'm like, I want that and I want that. So I like the diamond thing, but that's a personal thing. And I also found nautical. I was noticing
nautical
a
is
lot
so
of nautical.
hot. Nautical is so hot.
Tons of stars and constellations.
Yeah, and with that, more being for boys and having that more masculine thing too, being aware of it's not just girly, having something. Richard Gray did it's a stamp thing, but his beards line, a very masculine, campy, and then that leads into
we've
the
got
camping.
at the Photo Play Paper booth where I'm social media manager. We've got a very, very masculine, dark brown plaid, dad.
A lot of plaid,
line.
which is a crossover from fashion.
And thank you. I'm very trendy today.
Yeah, and I think it was Echo Park too that had a man collection, and it, used the word man in it.
And My Mind's Eye had plaid papers that they were making those big paper fan things with as decor. There were some really cool red and black plaids there, the lumberjacky.
Yeah, the lumberjack kind of trend is
because
taking over.
And I think
Rich
that's
Gray
an
one.
extension of all that woodland creature stuff that we were seeing for a while.
Yeah, and then the pineapple.
That's out of left field.
Yeah,
I know why pineapples.
Yeah, I've seen it in several different places. We've got a pineapple charm in one of the new embellishment kits that May designed for Buttons Galore, and I thought it was really cool when I saw the kit, and then I walked on the show floor, and pineapples are really hot, but there's just no accounting sometimes for where these charms come from.
Did you notice that there's, it used to be around the holidays, you'd have these, everybody had Christmas lines, everybody had Valentine's lines. There were only a few Valentine's lines. I mean, usually it was every booth
The
that had
Valentine's
paper.
lines came out months ago. I saw Valentine's lines at the summer show in Salt Lake City in July.
But there just weren't a ton of them. I mean, it used to be like every single company that made paper came out with a whole Valentine's line, and there were very few.
Yeah, I think now too, because hearts are a staple thing, that you can use regular papers for your Valentine's or other holidays too.
Well, this show in particular is the January show is way too close to
It's already in the stores.
And yeah, you have to be already in the stores at this point for Valentine's Day. You can't release a new Valentine's line at this show. It just doesn't work. I've seen people who are already releasing their summer like vacation and even 4th of July.
Well, and I think that's maybe where the pineapple comes from, because like tropical vacation and the nautical is kind of summery, and so maybe that's why we're seeing more of that now.
I noticed a lot of Christmas lines, but because there wasn't really a summer show, I'm not sure if they were last year's Christmas lines and they're just showing them now versus a new Christmas line. I'm not exactly sure because I'm not familiar with all what came out at Christmas time, but a lot of booths were showcasing Christmas and winter papers, which you wouldn't normally see at the January show, but I guess since there's not a huge, like SPC is it, we'll have something, but otherwise,
Well, and maybe if buyers are only coming to the one show a year, then this is where they buy everything for the year.
Yeah. It could be. At the end of the month, I'll go to Frankfurt for Creative World, and Christmas World will already be going on. People are already thinking about Christmas in the retail industry.
Another thing I noticed in a lot of booths was sports papers, and being from Canada and not a sports fan, it's not something I would want, but I guess sports is so huge.
Paper House Productions
but
has
not
an
just
entire
them,
wall.
like other companies that wouldn't normally do sports had a lot of sports themed papers.
When the economy got so bad, theming in general had gone away because companies were trying to produce fewer lines, so they were trying to produce stuff that was
like
as
multi-purpose,
as broad purpose as possible, and that had as long a life as possible. And so a lot of that heavy theming went away. We're seeing like a resurgence now in travel lines. Because the economy has come back and more people are traveling. Just ask anybody who's tried to get on an airplane recently, wall-to-wall people, and so there's more commitment to like travel stuff and more commitment to theme stuff. So you're seeing the themed travel lines
and camping and teepees.
What is with glamping is just a hot trend in general.
I mean, we have a trailer on the floor. Eileen Hall brought Scotty with her, and I think that's there's a massive group out there of women that travel with these vintage trailers.
And then both Spellbinders over there and we are in conjunction with Crate Paper both had big teepees set up in their booths,
right?
So it's sort of
there's a selfie teepee over at Spellbinders.
It's like okay.
Well, and they have a little they have little dies, and they have like little teepees, and they have a little canoe that they cut out of wood with a little fox in it that's in their displays. So cute.
And maybe it's just another iteration of the outdoors stuff that we're seeing. Just a new fun approach to the outdoorsy stuff.
Now, here's a question. Where do we stand on pocket scrapbooking versus layouts in the industry?
Well, it's interesting because what you see on the displays in the booths are layouts most of the time. But I think what people are really doing, what I'm doing, I know, is a combination of the two. I like the ease of the pocket pages, I like the creativity of the layouts, and I mix them up all in the same album.
Yeah, and I think that's more what you're seeing now, is it's not one or the other, that people are doing both, and they're switching the sizes around. So like the 6x8 albums, versus all the standard 12x12. I mean, when you walk around, I saw very few 12x12 albums anywhere. I don't know if you guys noticed that. I mean, they're like just the standard 12x12 albums. It used to be that you'd have those in every booth, and even in the Project Life booth, they're kind of off to one side, and the smaller albums I think are taking precedence.
I've noticed that the albums are downsizing. The page sizes are downsizing, but there's still a pretty heavy commitment to 12x12 for display. on the
Right.
walls and stuff.
Yeah.
Now that's partially for practical purposes.
Yeah.
Because a 12 by 12 makes a larger display for a wall, but
And if you have a display with different pocket pages, it's hard to flip through them all and see them all, and you don't want everybody touching it all, and so it's harder to
Well, and
photograph.
you can use more product, I feel like, on a 12 by 12
Yeah.
layout, and they want to show their product.
Yeah, especially like in the Prima booth. I mean, all their
Layers
walls are
of
covered in
dimension.
lots.
Yeah.
But I also noticed that a lot of those seem to be more suitable for home decor, right? So for framing, putting in a shadow box, having out or on the front of an album rather than being, in a page protector.
With that being said, We Are Memory Keepers has a frame that you open up and you can change out your layout, so you can
Right.
display one layout at a time that has easy access. So
Right.
to take it out of your book and have it as a piece of art or
Right.
another photo in your house.
Well, for so long, we all made these gazillions of scrapbook pages, and we hid them away in the albums on a shelf. And I think people want to live with their memories and see them and be reminded.
Or if you were proud of a layout you
Yeah.
did and you want to it's a piece of art, because it really is. People put so much time into these layouts.
And money.
Yeah. Well, and we have a sponsor called GoOrganize.com, and they make organizing furnishings, and they just launched like 10 new products, and 2 of those products were to display. So one is like a memo board that's magnetic, and then one of them is a frame, and they got the biggest response. And there were several other products that I thought were really, really cool. Those 2 are the 2 that people picked, and maybe for that reason.
yeah, that's an interesting reference to the organizing segment, because it is coming back. For a long time, the scrapbook segment didn't have any organizing in it. Since it was like when the financial crash hit, people stopped buying organizing stuff, and we started hacking our, making drawer organizers out of cereal boxes and all that stuff, and the tote market went away and everything. And now on the show floor this time, there is tons of organizing products. There's a couple companies doing rolling totes. There's all sorts of stuff. Tim Holtz has a whole thing of new organizing stuff with the Storage Studio line from Advantis, and
Like the distress marker.
yeah, the distress
box
marker
and-
thing, the rotating spinner for the
Right,
tabletop, which
right.
I must have, and the drawer unit, and with the distress kind of finishes on it. And don't you hate when they come out with when you just finished organizing your scrapbook room and now they come out with all this cool stuff?
That one's fun. Did he do the one with the like a rolly thing with all the drawers?
Yeah, that's supposed
But
to be
when you
his.
think about it, what people are doing a lot of right now, the planners and the coloring books, are things you can take with you. People aren't really going to crops as much anymore because there aren't really stores left to go to in a
Tell
lot
that
of
to
areas.
the crowd at Scrapbook Expo.
Scrapbook
Oh, for
Expo
sure.
is nuts.
Okay, so that's
Yeah.
a destination event,
Exactly.
but a lot of the local scrapbook stores have closed, and your weekly Friday night crop that you
Yes.
do or whatever is a thing of the past because there's no place to go do it. So
Yeah.
I think that as we're seeing more take-along crafts now, needlework and coloring books and planners, and those are things that you would take and do somewhere, and now you need stuff to carry with you again.
But there's a lot of even the storage products that are being sold for the home studio too. Like, oh man, I wish I could remember who it was. Somebody is making wood organizers. It might be Creative Options.
Arbin.
Arbin. It's Arbin.
Yeah,
Yes.
and they're
The
not. Those are
wood.
just like their
The-
demo.
Yeah, the wood things that have the slots in them for the pens and everything, and those are definitely not portable, and it's
Well, and pens are a thing again.
yeah, and pens are a thing.
For the longest time in scrapbooking, the lettering and the pens were huge, and then that kind of made way for other things. I think when people learned how to print titles way back in the 90s and all of that, there wasn't so much pen stuff. But now with the coloring and the brush
And lettering.
lettering trend and all of that, pens are a thing again.
Yeah, now we need to organize them, but it's been interesting watching that organization segment come back. That people want actual products again instead of going to the kitchen section at Walmart or
Well,
whatever and
let's
buying
face it,
stuff.
we scrapbookers and crafters are a people who like to organize.
Yes, we are.
We like our organization.
Yes,
Sometimes we are organized more than we use our stuff.
That's right. That's half the fun.
Yeah, and that's a huge market, and that's why it was fascinating to me when that segment seemed to disappear, because the products disappeared from the market, but there was content all over the web about how to organize your stuff, and so you go on Pinterest and there's scrapbook and craft organizing, you know,
we have a whole
palooza.
series that we've done for 2 years.
Yeah.
And it's huge
Yeah,
traffic.
it's huge on my website. It's huge on my Pinterest boards.
Yeah.
You know, and yet it had disappeared from the retail market, you know, almost entirely. And so now it's coming back, you know, reflecting what the online interest appears to be in it.
Well, and it's interesting that, you know, I think part of that may be that trend, you know, when we all went to the keynote, part of that trend talk was personalization, right? And I look at like the products from Creative Options that have really cool patterns, that's a way to kind of express yourself, and it's a way to personalize, you know, what people see. You know, when you go to a crop, or they have these planner meetups now, and people are investing huge amounts of money in the bags and the things that they're taking to coordinate with the 6 or 7 planners they're toting along.
Well, and I would even go so far as to say the planners are like the 3D Facebook wall, where you show off what you're doing. This is who I am. This is what I did this week. That's like your Facebook post, where you kind of
pictures of your kids,
pick the best parts of your life to showcase, and this is what I want people to know that I did this week.
Yes, that is a very good way of putting it. Definitely, I think that very encapsulates what the demo instructor in the Me and My Big Ideas booth was describing about how she goes back and she, you know, records what she did that week in the journal and puts in the photos and everything else. She is basically creating a curated physical Facebook wall of her life.
And I'm curious how many people are recording it. Like, I use mine very realistically, like my dentist appointments in there, and you know, my appointment with the school psychologist about helping my son with organization, and yeah, all of those things are in my planner. But I wonder how many people include those things as opposed to like editing and sugarcoating like you would do with the Facebook wall.
Well, and just like with scrapbook pages, right? Do you remember we went through that thing where people were saying, you know, people are only showing the best of their lives, or not ever journaling the hard stuff, and then it was this switch to art journaling and like pour out your feelings on the page, and that kind of replaced the only show the good stuff, and I mean, we've gone back and forth.
Well, and I know with scrapbooking,
industry,
people always say, but we want to remember the good things. That's why I don't scrapbook the hard stuff, is because of the good memories. But when you're dealing with a planner, and this is something that's almost like an artifact for future generations, if you're going to save this, and your great-grandchildren are going, well, what did my great-grandmother do on a daily basis? They're going to think that there was no strife in our world whatsoever. You know?
All we did was eat tea and crumpets with our little pinkies out. As a former professional genealogist, the issue of historical accuracy is definitely something to me, because you know, I look at a lot of the stuff that I create from a scrapbooking standpoint, and I'm like, I wish I had this about my grandmother or my great grandmother. But then, but how accurate of a record am I leaving? You know, when I do these things.
But you know, I collect vintage scrapbooks, so the big old ones with the black pages, and I buy them at antique things and vintage festivals. And I remember looking through one of them and saying, this is the same thing, because the only things in there were the celebrations, the graduations, the you know, the bits and pieces from kind of happy things or travel or something that you did. And not in, I mean, I have like, I don't know, 23, 24 of them. There's not one negative thing in any of them.
Well, it's
they're
because
all kind of the happy side of life.
Well, it's because, you know, in the early times of photography, it was so expensive. They only used it for like the weddings and, you know, a few baby pictures. And actually, I have scrapbooks that belonged to my grandmother that are nothing, I kid you not, but obituary clippings. She lived in a small town in the UP, and you know, was related to half the people in town, and every time somebody died, the obituary got clipped out of the newspaper and pasted in the scrapbook along with like the funeral card from the funeral home and stuff. It's a treasure trove as a genealogist, but you know, you're like, holy cow, this woman spent nothing but her life going to funerals, you know.
But I think that the planner as a scrapbook crossover gives us a unique opportunity to leave something more substantial. This is a bit of our daily lives, and I think that that's maybe why it's attractive to scrapbookers as a crossover craft and a combination scrapbook and day runner type thing.
And I also think that some of this has come out, again, I keep going back to the economy, because I think it has changed consumer behavior in a way that is kind of irrevocable, even though supposedly we're in a recovery.
I think there's still fear, though.
Exactly.
Oh, for sure.
Well, there's fear, and a lot of people's priorities have changed, and their outlooks on life have changed because of it. And while the economy in general has recovered, a lot of people individually have not. And I think when we were experiencing the scrapbook boom time in the industry, it was all about, people felt good about their lives and they were recording that. And then since the economic collapse, and a lot of people are experiencing still a lot of hard times, there's this feeling that even though I mentioned earlier, a lot of people are traveling again, there's a lot of people whose lives are still harder than they were before. They're not experiencing, the good things maybe in life that they were experiencing before the economic collapse. And they don't, I hear it over and over again online, I don't have anything to scrapbook because I don't take vacations, I don't do this. And I think something like a planner and even the boom of Project Life came out of this. It's scrapbooking the small everyday things because
we all have that.
Because we all have that versus this concept of, well, I'm going to scrapbook all these cool, exciting things I do because we're like, yeah, I don't do anything cool and exciting.
Well, and the concept that your day-to-day is noteworthy and you don't have to be larger than life to have interesting things to record.
Well, and think about how cool that will be for future generations.
Exactly.
I mean, I would love to know, what did my grandmother do on a daily basis when she was 10 years old, right? I mean, I only know her as my grandmother. I only know my mom as my mom. And my mom's starting to write all her stories down. And she had a really tough childhood in World War II Germany, and so for her it was really difficult to talk about the things she went through. And now she's sharing them, and I think, how many people have already lost the parent that could share those stories? So the everyday thing to me, or when you look at old pictures and you see the old black and white TV with no remote in the back, those are the things that for me are really fun to see and read through.
And I find even if you have kids, as they grow, their activities change. And even looking back 2 years ago and saying, oh, look, my child, we used to do this, 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 and this. Oh my goodness. Or now we only do this. Or, oh yeah, you used to do that activity, now you're doing this activity. So just looking back to see how your daily changes with your family, and you change your job or you change where you live or whatever, and to look back on, oh, remember when every Tuesday we would go to the movies or whatever, right?
Yeah, remember when every night we had to read that book at bedtime.
Yeah, and it's so your life is constantly changing, and so by able to scrapbook or whichever memory keeping one you want to use, remembering back to that, because those little things you do forget, and it's fun to remember back to going to the ballet school 3 times a week.
Well,
and I think there's still going to be the bigger things that people who scrapbook will still want to scrapbook, the bigger events and vacations and that kind of thing. But maybe this is a good way for people who haven't been scrapbooking to get into it and kind of shot in the arm for the industry.
So what do you guys think about the fact that people don't print their pictures anymore? I mean, when you think about the concept of how many total pictures we have, and back them up.
Yeah, I remember back when I was working in a local scrapbook store back in 1999, 2000, 2001, a lot of the impetus of those women walking through the front door was they walked in with their folder full of pictures that they had just picked out, going, I need stuff that I can use with these pictures to get them scrapbooked because I got to do something with my pictures.
Right.
And we don't have that impetus anymore.
And maybe the definition of scrapbooking is evolving and changing anyway, and so that maybe you don't need printed pictures. Maybe more people will do it digitally. Maybe more people will consider their Instagram their memory-keeping record. I think that if you look at the newer generations, they want less stuff. They don't want albums full of photos. My kids in their 20s don't want all of that. When they go on vacation, they don't want it. They want to experience it. They don't want to take pictures.
I know personally I'm doing a lot more photo books, so I can get like 400, 500 photos, but it's only taking up this much space because on a page I can put one photo or I can put 16.
Right.
So I'm still have all my photos and I have my journaling in my photo book, but I'm not using as much space on my. Sorry, we have Captain America
You're
walking
being
by.
photobombed by Captain America. I don't think anybody's hearing anything you're saying.
He's been through twice.
I know.
Well, and I think also,
right.
so between the photo books and then now there's some services that will scrape your Facebook feed or scrape your Instagram feed, and you can immediately,
Painful.
print, but they print the book out, right? So
Yeah.
you can basically, as you said, a lot of people like Kathy Zielski, so been in this industry forever. She's using, her feed, and I know Stacy Julian, I think, said she's using Instagram as her memory keeping, and then you can just upload all that and create a photo book from it.
But I think in some way, be it you print photos or have a photo book, to have a hard copy of that photo, because you never know what system's going to go down. Will Facebook be here forever?
Sure.
And on Instagram, I know I've posted thousands of photos. To get back to a photo from the first one, it's
Right.
so hard to find that photo.
I still print my favorites because I like to have them in 3D form in my life. That's just me. But I think as people who have been in the industry for a long time, we need to be open to the attitudes of maybe the new scrapbookers who consider something else entirely a scrapbook. I think for the industry to stay afloat, we've got to welcome it all.
So more memory keeping versus scrapbooking.
Well, it will be interesting to see where it goes. And if you have a thought on this topic, leave us a comment wherever you're watching this video. Thanks for joining us. Be sure to like our video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Scrap Time Videos, to be the first to see the latest videos from CHA 2016.